Would it be fine with you if we went about 10 minutes past the noon hour so I can complete this? Is that all right with everybody? Okay. If I want to reprioritize this list because the way I have it wired up is not working for me, all I have to do is ask. The word willing means gladly ready. I never knew what these words meant. Can you imagine? I thought willing meant gun to the head. They told me when I'm doing it, working in this book, to get a dictionary. Read it. Look it up. Luther called me one day. He said, "Do you know what recovery means in the dictionary?" I said, "What?" I hadn't looked it up because I thought I knew what it meant. He said, one of the definitions is recovery is the extraction of something precious out of that which appears to have no value. Isn't that a sweet definition? Wow, the recovery is the extraction of something precious out of that which appears to have no value. That's very sweet. Brought tears to my eyes when he said that. Anyway. This is the bondage of self. This is where I go for my power. Dear God, please take me to a place where I am gladly ready to have nothing more important in my life than a better relationship with you. This is very key stuff. Because I cannot proceed without taking care of this question of whether God is everything or nothing. Don't be going into a third step thing without solving this problem. Because you'll ask to be relieved of the bondage of self in favor of a better relationship with God, and the better relationship with God was going to be on the bottom and all that stuff. That's what happened to me. That's what happened. Relieve me of the bondage of self. 100 days later, all of this is gone. No wonder I felt afraid. So they said, just make your list. And at night, look at that list and say the prayer. Take me to a place where I'm gladly willing, gladly ready to have this list reprioritized so that nothing in my life is more important than a better relationship with you. Now, this is sophisticated stuff. We're moving right along here. This is where I have had my butt kicked all over town, and I'm finally got the open-mindedness of someone who, as Don used to say, has gotten the point on his head rounded off by having it ground against the curb a little bit. And the next morning, nothing. 2 mornings later, after saying the prayer, I'm looking at my list again, and I was willing to let go of, I don't remember which the first one was, but anger went. All right, I'm willing to have anger less important to me than a better, okay. And a couple of mornings later, all right. My image, I'll let it go. Pride, control. Not that they're out of my life, but they are less important to me. And so, within 2 weeks, this list is reprioritized so that a better relationship with God is at the top of the list. Nothing is more important than that. And for the most part, that's stayed that way. Oh, sometimes, sure. I had a funny thing. I was going through this with a guy, because I take guys through the steps. We're right here, and I do it with them, and I'll be damned if something funny didn't happen. I realized as I wrote my list down again that there was something more important to me than a better relationship with God. And you know what it was? It was being good at taking guys through the steps. Isn't that weird? I'd made a virtue out of it. And I was losing my effectiveness too, you know. But it just kind of sneaks in. Anyway, it's worth checking it, because when there is nothing more important to me than a better relationship with God, everything changes, because there's only one relationship. There's only one. And that's my relationship with God. And every other relationship I have is a reflection of that one relationship. And if that's sweet, they're all sweet. And if that one isn't doing so good, none of the others will be doing so good either. And so that was a hugely important move for me to make. Yes, ma'am. The definition of recovery? Yeah, she asked if I'd repeat the definition of recovery. Recovery is the extraction of something precious out of that which appears to have no value. And of course, that kind of a definition is one that you would expect in, like, mining or some chemical process. Get gold out of gold ore. But it so applies to me. Extraction of something precious out of that which appears to have no value. Very, very interesting definition. And all of these words, some of these words are so amazing when you look them up in the dictionary. Words that Wilson chose to use, and he was very precise in the way he picked them. Very precise. All right, so now I'm at a state, and I'm still in step 2, where what's happened? First of all, I have a vision of sanity. It's sort of like if I have a vision of sanity, I'm like a guy in the middle of the ocean in a raft. I don't have any power, but since I have a paddle, I think I have power. And all I can do is make that little raft turn around out there in the ocean. I'm endlessly circling the drain, thinking I have power. And the essence of step 2 is about taking the paddle and tying my shirt to it and sticking it up in the air where real power can get me moving. Where do I want to go? That's the vision of sanity. Do I want to go to Seattle or Portland or Hong Kong? I can choose. I can choose. Tell you where I want to go. I want to have a sane sex life. I want to have a relationship with God. I want to have creature comforts. None of that is out of the question at all. But to have any of it, I have to be willing that my relationship with God be more important to me than anything else. And that's just the way it is. We have a spiritual illness, and it needs a spiritual solution. Does my ego balk at such a thing? Oh, sure. Oh, sure. And after a while, I have to give my ego another job because it's been given the job of running the show. And it turns out to be a fairly useful tool, and that may be a topic for another weekend, but I want to keep perspective. It's like there's some. Did you ever hear that literature in the read in the meeting where it says we this little prayer of Thomas Merton? We know you want us to be real partners with you in this business of living. There's nothing in this book about a partnership like that. Nothing. It talks about father-child. It talks about actor-director. It talks about principal-agent. It talks about employee-employer. I'm not after a partnership. And the reason I'm not is because I got an ego that would take it. It would start out God and Hodges, wouldn't it? And pretty soon it's Hodges and God. And it's next time we print the stationery, Hodges and Associates. And then God is of counsel over here on this side. No, he's my father. He's my father. That's step 3 stuff, and I'm just moving it. No extra charge for that to get into step 3 in the morning. Okay, the other thing is this. Where is he? Where is this God? On page 45 of this book, Wilson sets it up in a weird way. He sets up the question, where and how are we to find this power? On page 55, he gives us the answer. How are we to find this power? To search. Faxing court cards in here will not work. The way we are to find this power is to search diligently within ourselves. Where is this power? Where? The great reality is deep within. I had no idea. I had no idea that God was inside me. Why on earth would he take up residence in me? I'm hardly a fit host for him. And I'm born that way. I came here with God inside me. Isn't that weird? That is such a strange and unusual notion. God is inside me? I thought he was way out there someplace, and when I prayed out there to a little bitty God that didn't care about me. I was practicing the absence of God instead of the presence. That's the celebration until then. The absence of God. He's way out there. And it seemed to me that it was my job to somehow or other do something good enough that God would notice and come help me. And imagine my shock to discover that it's not up to me to do anything for God. He'll demonstrate through me what He can do. I didn't know that. Had all this turned around. It's so much easier than I ever thought. And I think what we'll do is take a break now. All right, I'm Clint. I'm an alcoholic. Who's going to lead us in the serenity prayer? This lady right here. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, I have a question. Here's the question. How does the phenomenon of craving affect you on a spiritual, physical, emotional level? Let's define that term. What is the phenomenon of craving? All right, how about this lady here? Is it Kay? What's the phenomenon of craving? Yeah. Any? I have no physical defense against a drink. All right. It jumps up in me when I'm not spiritually fit. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, right here.
Once started drinking, you have no control over the
All right. Kay said it just jumps up when I'm not spiritually fit. We have another definition here. Once I start to drink, I can't control the outcome. How somebody? What? Wanting it? Okay. Once you start to drink, you can't stop. Okay. Manifestation of an allergy. All right. Somebody else? Okay. How about the obsession? What is an obsession to drink? Same thing. Okay. Here's the way the terms are generally accepted in the book and in the AA literature. The obsession to drink is what tells me, in spite of my history, that I can safely drink again. And in my mind, with that obsession, and it will take me back to drinking every time. Every time. The craving is what happens to me after the first drink. The first drink sets up the craving, which means that the answer is what happens to me after the first drink? The second drink. The second drink. The craving is what kicks in once I introduce an ounce of alcohol into my system. Yes. That's the obsession. Now, generally speaking, they use the terms two different ways. The obsession is from being sober, what takes me to that next drink, that screwy idea that even though my last drinking was absolutely a disaster, that I can safely drink again. This is the idea that if I just remember to eat, or if I don't shoot pool, or if I, any number of things, or if I don't drink tequila, I'll be okay. This idea that I can justify drinking again in spite of overwhelming evidence that I should never drink again. That's the obsession. The obsession is there with me before I start to drink. The craving is triggered by the first drink. Because once I start to drink, it's all over. I'm going to drink. I am going to drink. The obsession is without the booze in my system, I still go back to drinking. And so when the question is, how does the phenomenon of craving affect you on a spiritual basis? If the phenomenon of craving is what's caused by the first drink, I don't have a spiritual life when that kicks in anyway. I don't have an emotional life, really, except one of anger when that kicks in. How does it affect me on a physical basis? The phenomenon of craving, it means that I cannot predict the outcome of that first drink. It'll affect me physically because I will continue to drink. I won't always get drunk, but I won't be able to say one way or the other. I can't control what's going to happen to me. Once I take that first drink, the booze is in control. I am not. It may let me go right away. It may take me for 3 weeks. It may take me to jail. It may take me home. But the booze is doing the deal. So the phenomenon of craving affects me at every level. But usually I've abandoned any attempt to have a spiritual life. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken that first drink.
My intent on alcohol. I kind of understand what Jason was saying about that, you know I have to drink the evening, the craving. But I remember when I first got sober, it was like my body was still, demanding to have a drink. It was the obsession of the mind, but yet
That's
my
right.
body was still wanting to take a drink. So, and that went on for, well over 30 days.
Well, it doesn't matter at that point whether you're calling it an obsession or craving. I'm just saying the book makes a distinction between the two terms and talks about craving as what happens after the first drink, and the obsession is what's going on that takes me to that first drink. Okay. Any other comment or question? Yes. That's exactly right. Yeah. Has anybody ever been in a situation where you got 1 or 2 drinks and then for some reason you couldn't have another one? Is that fun or what? That is just the worst feeling in the world. Once that's happened to you, how many have said, never again, I'm not even going to take 2 if that's all I can have. If I know that's all I'm going to get, I'm going to wait until a week because I don't want to light that fire. That's the craving. The obsession is, once I'm out of there and once I can have 20, I got to go. I haven't even had the first one or the second one, but I got to go. Love you like a rainbow, and I got to go. I know I said I wouldn't, and I'm not. I'm going to go get the bread. I'm going to go. The trip down to the store for milk is about the obsession. The reason we can't come back from the store is about the craving. Okay. But I remember when I was on active duty in the Marine Corps, we had to go to the general's reception. I was a young second lieutenant, and we were at Camp Pendleton. And they told us going in, they said, you're going to get 1 drink. 1 drink. Well, I know there's a way to get, no, you're not going to. And by God, they meant it. You got 1 drink. I went up to the bar 10 times trying to get that 4th and 5th and 2nd drink. I couldn't do it. And I'm in my dress blues, and you can't. And I could get into that uniform without help, but once you're drunk, you can't get. And I couldn't get out of that uniform for a couple of days. I was out of everything except those hooks along the neck there. They keep you up like that. But that's because I had to really go out and get ripped that night because I had 1 drink, and I went through the agony of 2 hours standing around the general's reception without a second drink. It just made you crazy. I can still remember how awful that felt. That's the craving. I had 1. And the craving kicked in, and I could. And you're right. You don't notice the craving as long as the second drink is there, and the third drink, and the 4th drink. That's why we like to back them up pretty good. Somebody said once, it isn't how booze makes you feel so much as how it makes you think you're going to feel in about 10 minutes. And that's the backup. Give me a double and put 1 right behind it. Yeah. Oh, those are. But we're talking about what happens when the obsession is gone. That's why when we talk about, if we were to diagram out step 1, it would look like this. powerless, and that's bodily and mental. And the bodily powerlessness is the craving. I've already got one shot in my system, I'm going to have another, and another, and another. That's the craving. Mentally powerless because I hear that booze calling. I'm mentally powerless over alcohol. We're bodily and mentally powerless over alcohol. That's the obsession. Because that takes me to the first drink. And then down here, we have unmanageable. The manageability of my life is a spiritual deficit. Here's what's wrong. Now, once the obsession has been removed, we don't have to deal with the craving because we don't take the first drink. But we still have a mental problem, and the mental problem is comprised of old ideas, a mind that lacks proportion and can't think straight, and this goofiness that I have a strange defiance against everything in my life, strangely defiant. I was talking to a gal the other day. She said they want me to go to 3 meetings a week, and I tell them and you know, and the whole thing was based on I'm just not going to do what they tell me to do. I'm just not going to do it. Not going to do it. I have a better idea of how to run my life, and it's okay, fine, great. How is that working for you? Oh, I don't know. There is but it's just, you know, we've all had that. God, I remember, how many times did they tell me you got to go? You know what I did when I was newly sober? A guy didn't see me at the Friday night meeting over in Glendale for a month. I came back. He said, "Where have you been?" I said, "I've been playing bridge on Friday night." He said, "Do you have a bridge problem?" Well, no, not really. Oh, he got madder than hell at me. He said, "You get to this meeting, you just defer that bridge for a couple of years. Did you play bridge over in the shed? Were you playing bridge in jail?" No. Don't worry about bridge for a while. You get your butt to meetings. And I never forgotten that. That was a long time ago. And he cared enough about me to just call me on it, because I've always got a better idea. I'm going to outthink you if I possibly can, and it has kicked my butt. Anyway, that's all I know about obsessions. That's all I know about craving. Yes? Uh-huh.
fall out of it, but, you know, and I just wondered, because I find, like, I've got a lot of Bible students that are exactly 4 months apart. And when things hit me, emotional things, they say, 4 months, or when my husband committed suicide, it was 4 months, and I realized he was one of us, and he died from it. And I just wondered how you worked out first step, you know.
Well, basically we finally get that even though the obsession comes every 4 months instead of every day like it might for somebody else, or every week or whatever it is, we still have to get that there's no question about where that obsession is going to take me, even though I'm not going to have it all the time. There's no great problem, and there's no real difference except in terms of timing between a periodic drunk and a more typical drunk. There's no difference at all. And you either know that you can't drink again or you don't know. And it takes, I can see where it would take a periodic drinker longer perhaps to get the message and get the pattern. For me it was daily. I mean, I went to jail a lot. And you get the trap for See, here's how it goes. This book talks about being trapped. And Chamberlain used to talk about being in a trap we could not spring. It's a very peculiar kind of a trap. If you have a trap that's chained to a tree and it's a big bear trap, that bear steps in it and he is nailed. And he knows that he's nailed. A coyote will come along and get trapped like that. That coyote will chew off his own leg because he has no doubt that he's trapped. And so to get the coyotes in the smaller game, they developed a snare trap. And a snare trap isn't one chained by a heavy chain to the trunk of a tree. A snare trap is a trap where they have a strong wire that leads up to a branch that has a little give to it. And you grab that coyote by the leg, that coyote will chew off his own leg unless you set the snare trap so that he doesn't get it. And what will happen is he will make that branch, as he's trying to get away from the trap, the branch to which it is wired will give, and he can get out here like this. And then he'll get fatigued, and the branch comes back up, and it brings him in. And then he gets some rest, and the leg numbs up again, and he doesn't really know he's trapped. Why? Because he's got some move. He's got some give. He can almost get away. And then he gets caught. He's trapped just as surely as if he knew it, but he doesn't know it. And the difference is he won't chew off his own leg because he doesn't get it. And because he can't let go of that, he will get caught. The coyote that's caught in the larger trap and knows he's trapped might chew off his leg and get away. Periodic may be more of the snare trap variety. But most of us, because of this weird obsession that we can drink safely again, will get in a snare trap situation anyway. We just can't admit we're trapped. We can't admit it. Cannot get it. And we're caught in that kind of a trap. It's a nasty trap. It's a nasty, nasty trap. And it's the trap of alcoholism. Whether it's you're a periodic or a daily drinker, it's a trap. And in both cases, it's a strange thing. I heard it expressed this way one time. When we have cancer, one of the real problems with cancer is that our body doesn't know that we have cancer. And it cannot set up an adequate defense against the disease until it's often too late. Unless we're doing something to get periodic checks. Booze, alcoholism is not that our mind doesn't quite, not that our body doesn't know, our body knows. It'll throw up that booze, try to get rid of it any way it can. But our minds don't know we have alcoholism until it's too late. And so in that sense, it's as fatal as cancer is because our minds don't get it. Our minds know we have cancer, our bodies don't know we have cancer. Our bodies know we have alcoholism or that something is really wrong, but our minds don't get it. And that's the obsession as opposed to the craving. Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? Where did we, we were talking about Step 2, Chapter 4, and those interesting exercises that they had me go through. Now, you might say to yourself, well, it's 1:25. We started at 9 o'clock this morning, and we're only on Step 2. That's often the way it goes. The more time we spend on Steps 1 and 2, the more likely it is that we can take Step 3 and finish Step 4. Because as you can see, this whole idea of the priorities in my life is so important to being in a position where I could make a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God, which I must do. It is so important that I turn my will and my life over to the care of God at Step 3. And the reason that it's important is because Steps 4 through 9 are contrary to my life and against my will. And I won't take them if I haven't taken Step 3. In fact, the whole juice to take Step 2 comes from Step 1. I got to get it that my life is unmanageable or I can't go to Step 2. If I don't get that my life is unmanageable, if I cannot see that, then the benefit and the power of the rest of the steps is lost to me. It's lost to me. So the sequencing is real important. That's why it was so silly for me to decide, well, I'm in a mess or I'm in a real flat spot in my sobriety, so I think I'll say the third step prayer. It's like, oh, God. Oh, don't even go there. Oh, man, it's going to hit the fan. And it did. It did. But I didn't know that. Because I didn't have sufficient experience and respect for these steps, even though I'd been in AA a long time. I just was still trying to read the directions on the box of cake mix and get some cake is what I was doing. Yeah. That's all I was doing. Okay. So I'm at a point now where I get it, that it's critical that nothing is more important to me than a better relationship with God. And now I could finally say, what's the answer to the question, is God everything or nothing? And the answer is, basically, He is everything. I won't get my power out of all those other things that were on my list. I can't get it out of sex. I can't get it out of money. I can't get it out of my career. I can't get it out of my crazy sort of image. I can't get it out of any of that stuff. I can't. There's no power in there for me. The day will never come when I can create my own power, when I can tap into power that I can use to run my life. That's not the thing. So what the hell am I going to do? Well, in the book it says there is one who has all power. If He has all power, there's none left over for me, basically. Which I didn't want to hear. I don't want to hear that. I want to think, well, all right, He's powerful, but I got some power too. And the only reason I think that is because I'm in a raft in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and I got this paddle and I can make the raft turn around and around. And I think that's power. And all I'm doing is circling the drain. That is not power. That is not power. In the book it says, where and how are we to find this power? That's one of the questions posed on page 45. And as I was saying before the break, that question is answered at page 55. How am I going to find this power? It says we have to search fearlessly. Where is this power going to be located? We find the great reality deep within. And that was such a novel idea to me because I'd always known that God was out here someplace. Up there someplace. I was sort of taught that as a child. The idea that He was inside me was so strange. I said, well, where is the center of God then? Well, the center of God is right here, and here, and here, and here. Each of us is a center of God. Each of us is. That means that God not just has taken up residence in me, but He has always been there. Always been there. He's what you might call in some religions a conscience. He's in some ways a creative place. I don't know if there's any artists or creative people in this room today, but, well, I do know that there are some. And I can assure you that you, when you are at your very best, have a creative center out of which all of that springs. All of that springs. To say it another way, there is something in me that connects me to the universe. There is a piece of me that is my connection to the universe. To say it in another way, how is it that that piece, that if God really removed that obsession to drink, so I didn't have to go back to it, and incidentally, He has not removed the craving as far as I know, and if I took a drink, it'd be back to the same thing again. We don't want to forget that either. But if He removed the obsession to drink, and He did, and He did it in a day, that's the amazing thing about it. He did it in a day. What part of me did He touch to do that? What in me was changed? And how did God change that? Wilson says in the book, and it used to make me want to throw up when I read it, God comes to most men gradually, but His impact on me was sudden and profound. And I go, oh, how nice for you, Bill. We're all so thrilled. And then one day, I realized something very strange. I was, on the 14th of August that year, 1966, I was on the 14th of August a drunk. Powerless drunk. And I had that talk with the guy in the AA club in Glendale. And the very next day, I didn't drink. And I have never drank since then. In 34 years, I have never drank since then. The obsession has been removed. That is huge. That is huge. And how do I know it's been removed? I've thought about drinking. I've considered what it would do to me. But that's not an obsession. When the obsession is on me to drink, guess what happens? I drink. I have no way of combating that obsession. That's the very nature of an obsession. I have been crazy enough to drink in this time, as you can imagine. I've been angry enough to drink in this time, as you might imagine. I have been humiliated enough in this time to drink, as you might imagine. I mean, there has been reason enough for me to drink, but I didn't drink. I didn't drink. And there's only one way to explain that, and that is to say the obsession was removed. And it was not removed by me, nor by you. I mean, I'm just talking to a mope in the AA club in Glendale. He certainly didn't remove the obsession. He had no power over that. But that was the last time I ever drank. So it was not only removed, but it was removed very quickly. God did not mull it over. And each of us has that day, a birthday. We call it a birthday in AA. The day of our birth into a sober life. Our birthday. It's a day. It's a day, and we all know the day. We all know the day. Only a person that's relatively new hasn't figured it out yet, but soon they do, because they want to start thinking about getting ready for their birthday talk. Begin to draft that. And that's a wonderful thing that they think that way. And so I go back to this part in the book. It says, Wilson said, God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. And I realized, my God, his impact on me was sudden. Wow. Because on the 14th, I'm a drunk, and on the 15th, I'm not a drunk. That is moving right along. That is, because if it was up to me, what would I say? Oh, I'm working on not drinking. Oh, I've devoted 1998, 99, and 2000 to cutting down. That's my birthday, if it's up to me. But his impact on me was profound. Not just sudden, but profound. How do I know that, and why would I say that? Because it went right to that little piece of me that needs a drink. That piece that was so active and so raw and so volatile and so destructive, that piece of me that always needs chemical peace of mind was touched, and in a moment was touched. There's a piece of me that belongs to AA. That's been touched by you. There's a piece of me that belongs to my wife. There's a piece of me that belongs to my sons. And there's a piece of me that's never going to get it. There's a little place inside of me that's never going to get it. And God has great compassion for that piece of me. It's the piece that needs loving the most, but I need to have some compassion for it too. In any event, on the 14th of August, 1966, God's impact on me was sudden and profound because I didn't drink again. And it was profoundly effective in that one little area. Because that's what I had asked for. In some way, and I couldn't tell you my prayer. Some guys and men and women remember the prayer they made. Some do. I remember saying, people have told me, God, please help me. I remember the prayer. I do not remember the prayer. I have heard some prayers. I remember when I was new and I listened to Gail Wilson. Did anybody ever hear Gail? She was sober in AA. Wonderful gal, had been a stewardess, bright. Oh my God, she was bright and funny and wonderful. And I'm sitting in the audience one night, maybe a year sober, and she's up there looking like $1 million. And she's telling this story about coming out of a blackout in her apartment in Hollywood. And she's sitting on the mantle over the fireplace with her cat. So right away I'm liking her more all the time, you know what I mean? And she's got a little vodka and cat food up there, a little something for everybody. And I'm thinking, Gail, we ought to have dinner. Man, oh man. And she said, as this story developed, that the reason that she and the cat were up on the mantle over the fireplace is there was 4 inches of water on the floor in the living room. And then she said, and this is where I fell in love with Gail, she said, and the reason there was 4 inches of water on the floor is because I'd started to take a bath last Tuesday and the whole deal got away from me somehow. And I'm going, oh, Gail, you're a pig just like me. I love you so much. Can't we get married soon? I mean, and then she said,